Yeah, no doubt about it. Amen to you, brother. All right, number 5, protecting property and earnings of citizens. So you were the one that did property rights. So you're exactly on Jefferson's page. So those 5 basic things sum it up. That's the concept of limited government. The founders gave us. We spent a lot of time on that, but that's the kind of things that we teach these students at Patriot Academy. So how do we, as our nation, how did we specifically limit our government from doing more than it should? Well, our declaration says the only thing they can do is what we give them the consent to do. So it's not the idea of democracy or even the idea of, hey, we trust 5 people in this room to kind of run the government for us. We're going to go concentrate on our business and other things, and they can do whatever they think is right in order to govern our island, our nation, whatever it means. We don't do that. We don't give unlimited power to any public servant because we distrust power. We know that it corrupts. We know that the heart is evil. The founders often quoted Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is evil, no man can know it. So even if you're a great guy or gal, and you're wonderful right now, if we give you unlimited power without the checks and balances, you're probably going to abuse it. Even if you're a great person right now, it's the laws of nature and nature's God. And so we want to limit it. And how do we do that? So we're a constitutional republic. Did I already do the Goldilocks slide? Did I jump past that? Okay. I don't know if I have it. Let's see. Oh, I don't have it. Okay. Are you going backwards or forward?
You see, you were looking for that.
Yeah, it might be the next one. Go forward a little bit. Let's see. Nope. Okay, keep going. Are there any limits on where I'd like to keep one more? Okay, so founders were trying to decide this. Keep going. We're not a democracy. We're not just a republic. We're a constitutional republic, which means one more. There she is. Goldilocks just right. Okay, so it's not too big, not too small. It's just right. Why? Because if we just elect 5 people and say we're going to be a republic, and we're going to put them in and have our Senate over here with no limits whatsoever, then they're going to get out of control. The beauty of being a constitutional republic is we actually say on paper for everyone to see and for the people to agree upon, here's some limits that no matter how smart you are and no matter how difficult the decision is or the problem facing you, you can't go beyond these limits. These are the things that you can do, and these are the things that you cannot do. That's the beauty of having a constitutional republic. But it only works if we know what's on the paper, right? So if we know what's on the paper, hopefully we'll elect people that are willing to respect and obey and honor what's on the paper, and we'll be able to find people that are willing to serve and not go beyond what's actually on that paper. So, let's see, we don't have time to go through all of them, but the Article 1, Section 8 gives us 15 specific powers that the federal government has. The amendments give them 2 more. So basically 17 things the federal government can do, and that's supposed to be it. I'd love to go through these and do like we do in our Constitution class, but I think a lot of you have already been through my Constitution class, so let's skip that part, and if you like, you can get that at wallbuilder.com and dive into those specifics. Okay, keep going. Let's see. 2 more, I think. You see, here's where we messed up. Okay, so we took God out, and then what happened? That formula flipped. That's our formula right now. 5 lawyers in Washington, D.C. have the final say, not only on what the other branches of government can do, but what you can do and what I can do. So because we lost the God part, then we started losing the whole government part and consider the government. So right now we have one branch that is overruling the other branches completely outside its box, right? We had boxes for each of these branches of government. We had boxes for each level of government, and now at virtually every level, in virtually every branch of government, they are outside their boundaries, doing things they should not be doing, and unfortunately, even the other branches have empowered the judicial branch to make all the decisions now. They have the final say. I mean, even President Bush, when he signed McCain-Franklin, said, "I think it's unconstitutional, but we got to wait and see what the Supreme Court says." No, we don't. We don't. You're the President of the United States. You're one of the 3 branches that has a say on constitutionality. Veto the law and say it's unconstitutional. I'm not going to support it. Congress, whenever the court tells you that something you've passed is unconstitutional, if you really believe they're wrong, then say, nice opinion, we're repassing the law, and if the president agrees with us, 2 out of 3, you lose, court. They don't do that anymore because we've given the court the final say. And here's the problem. We don't live under our written constitution in America. What it says on paper doesn't even matter anymore. We live under, I call it it's a witches brew. It's these guys got together in their robes, they got around their little kettle, and they created what I call, let me see if that one will come up right there. I call it the Constitution. All right, so it's not the Constitution anymore, it's the Constitution. And what they've done is, they take a phrase from this justice, and a phrase from that justice, and a frog leg here, and a little piece of hair here, and they throw it in there, and now we're ruling know what it actually says or does. So there's no stability. There's no surety that this is the law, because it depends on what this judge says or how Justice Kennedy feels this morning after breakfast and what he might say, and oh, we think this judge. That's not how our system was designed. The reason they designed it with a written constitution is so we could live in stability, that we would know that is the law. And the only way you change that law is through the amendment process in Article 5, not based on what 5 of our 9 justices feel that morning. So that constitution that we created is now the law of the land. And that is why we're having so much turmoil. In fact, you can point to almost every major policy problem we have in the country. Every level of government being out of its jurisdiction, it comes back to that constitution. We used to actually say, even with the Commerce Clause, we used to, almost for 150 years, the court would say to the Congress, if they tried to get outside their boundaries, the court would say, no, the Commerce Clause says there's only 3 things you can be involved in regulating, and that doesn't fall into it. You can't have minimum wage at the national level. There's no authority in the Constitution to do that. Wait, you can't go in and regulate that business that never even crosses state lines. You have no constitutional authority to do it. We used to actually say that. But ever since the 1930s, the court stopped saying no to the Congress when it expanded outside its boundaries, said yes every time until it's either 1994 or 1997. There was finally one time they said, no, that's beyond what you have the authority to do. So it's all messed up specifically because of that constitution. What's that name? Okay, so there is a way to fix it though. All right, so I know you can't elect a United States Supreme Court justice, right? I mean, we don't have a say directly on who they are or how they decide. But by electing a president that will take that as the most important duty that they're going to have. In fact, trust me on this, we're one United States Supreme Court justice away from completely shredding the Constitution. From absolute, I mean, you talk about a radicalization of our culture in our society. It just takes one more leftist on the court, and we are in big trouble. So whoever is the next president, that decision that they make on who gets appointed on the Supreme Court is massive for us for the next few years. Shouldn't be that way. The Founding Fathers thought the court was a bad job. John Quincy Adams gets appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, says, no, thank you, I don't think I want to go with that. There's no power in it. There's no influence in it. I don't want to be on the court. It used to not be a big deal. Now, unfortunately, it's the final say. But my point is, pay close attention to who you support for president this year and the emphasis that they put on being willing to make the tough call on that appointment. And what I mean by that is, if you take a look at Souter, if you take a look at even Roberts, in both of those cases, President Bush 41 and President Bush 43, when they made that decision, they had 2 justices sitting in rooms basically across the hall from each other. And they had an opportunity to pick a rock-solid constitutional conservative or the moderate that didn't have much of a record at all and felt like it was a safe bet getting through the Senate. It was going to be an easy confirmation. And in both cases, they chose that guy. And you see what we've got. And when they had a rock-solid conservative that they could have appointed. So make sure that you pick a presidential candidate that is willing to make that tough choice and spin the political capital to get that appointee through, not just at the Supreme Court, but the rest of the way down the judiciary as well. Yes, sir?
It didn't work with the Roe v. Wade court. They were Republicans.
Well, no, these guys, I'm talking about a Republican. David Souter was a Republican appointee, but look what the kind of justice that he became. John Roberts is a Republican appointee. He takes out his pen and rewrites the Obamacare statute twice, as if he's a legislator. And that's a Republican appointee. So no doubt, it's a Republican's not enough. That's why I'm saying that we've got to judge them based on their fruit, not based on their label. That was a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Now, I will say, there is another thing you can do to help turn the courts around. We are very, very blessed in Texas to actually have election of judges. So pay attention to who's running for your district judge, for your appellate court position, and certainly for your Supreme Court justice and Court of Criminal Appeals position. Because if you think about what happened this summer, the U.S. Supreme Court, first he gets out his pen and Roberts rewrites Obamacare again. So they help to destroy our economy with this monstrosity and hand that to us. And 24 hours later, it was like I felt like I had a 1-2 punch to the gut that week. 24 hours later, not only undermines the Constitution and state constitutions across the country, but undermines the very fabric of our society, the family. So in a 24-hour period, they take a shot at our economy and at our family, the fabric of our society. And think about what they did in that case. They didn't say to the states, you can redefine marriage to be something that it's never been in the history of mankind. Up until 15 years ago, in the history of man, no one ever thought about, or even advocated for, or even suggested that we would change the definition of marriage to what we're doing now. But they didn't just say you can do that. What they say to every state, you must do this, no matter what the people in your state want you to do. Talk about judicial tyranny. All right. So 2 cases right there, 24 hours. 1 week before that, right here in Texas, our own Texas Supreme Court said, we don't care what the Constitution that was ratified by the people of Texas says about the definition of one man and one woman. We're going to ignore that and do what feels good in this particular case. I shouldn't say the entire Supreme Court. 5 of our justices on the Texas Supreme Court did that. 3 of them in a phenomenal dissent written by Justice Willett, and in another concurring dissent written by Justice Devine, said, wait a minute, the definition of marriage is very clear. This is wrong. You guys are using technicalities to ignore our Texas Constitution.